Hey everybody! In this series of videos, I'm going to show you 10 features you need to know when working in Adobe Illustrator. Feature number 2, how to work with shapes. So the first thing we're going to look at is how to draw shapes with the shape tools. The shape tools are located right beneath the text tool. If you click and hold, you'll get a little pop-up menu that shows you the different shape tools, and we can click this little tab to tear it away. So the first shape tool is the rectangle tool. We can click and draw, and we can draw any shape we want, any type of square shape that we want. If we hold down Shift while we drag, that constrains it to a perfect square. When you're drawing these shapes, if you hold down Option, it'll draw from the center out. And if you hold Shift Option, it'll draw a perfect square from the center out. You'll also notice that all of these boxes have these little circles in the corners. And with those circles, we can adjust the corners. So we can pull those in. On any of these shapes, we can adjust the corners. You can also come up here to the toolbar, kind of right in the middle. And this little drop down menu, you can change the corners to inverted corner or a squared off corner. And we can do that with any of these square shapes. So the next shape we're going to talk about is the rounded rectangle. So when you draw this one, it automatically has the rounded corners already, and you can still adjust those. And if you hold down Option, you'll draw from the center out, and Shift Option, you draw from the center out, but you draw a perfect square like before. When we're drawing this rounded rectangle, you can use a modifier key. So as you're drawing this, if you press the up arrow key and drag, you can adjust the corners. If you hold the down arrow key and drag, it'll start moving the corners back out, all the way back to a square. Another way you can use this tool, you can use any of these tools, is you can click and bring up this menu, and you can tell it you want a 5" by 5" with a 0.5 corner, and it'll draw the box for you to the dimensions that you put in. Alright, so the next shape we're going to look at is the ellipse. We can click and draw, make an oval, and if you have the smart guides turned on, when you click and drag, you can move this around until you get this little green crosshair, and that way you know you've got a perfect circle just by using the smart guides. But you can also hold down Shift when you drag to make a perfect circle. If you hold down Option when you draw, you'll draw from the center of the circle out. And if you hold Shift Option, it'll constrain it to a perfect circle and draw it from the middle out. The next shape is the Polygon tool. You can click and draw a polygon. If you click and drag out, then a polygon is going to stay in proportion without any modifier keys, and you can turn it as you're drawing it. But if you hold down the Shift key, then that'll constrain it where you can't turn it. And again, if you hold Shift, it draws from the center out, and then Shift and Option constrain it and draw from the center out. Another thing about the Polygon tool is when you drag out the shape, if you press the up arrow key, you'll add more sides to it. And you can get it all the way to a circle just about if you add enough segments. And if you press the down arrow key, that'll take segments away all the way to a triangle. The next shape tool we're going to talk about is the star tool. If we click and drag a star, you'll get kind of this fat star, and you can turn it around however you want to. If you hold Shift, that'll constrain it to an upright state. If you hold Shift and Option and drag a star, it's going to make the star more like a traditional star. Another thing you can do with the star tool is when you drag out the star, if you press the up arrow key, it'll add more points. If you press the down arrow key, it'll take points away. If you hold the Option key, it'll draw from the center out. If you hold Shift Option, it'll constrain it and draw from the center out. If you hold down the Command key and pull out, it'll make the points longer. And if you keep holding the Command key and push in, you can make the points go in. You can even invert them. Okay, now we're going to talk about modifying shapes. So we'll just draw a couple of shapes here, square and a circle, and we'll do the polygon here. So if we select one of these shapes with the black selection tool, we can resize it by clicking on the point on the side and resizing it that way. We can resize it by clicking on the point at the top. We can resize it from the corner. And if we pick a corner, we can move it anywhere we want it. If you hold down Shift, that'll constrain it. And if you hold down the Shift option, that'll also constrain it and reshape it from the middle. Same thing with the circle. Shift it'll constrain it. Shift Option, draw from the center, or no modifier keys, and we can stretch it around however we want. And then the polygon with no modifier key, we can just click and reshape it. With Shift, it'll constrain it. Shift Option, it'll draw from the center. And you'll also notice that the polygon has one of those little dots here too. You can pull that in, kind of round the corners off. We can also select a shape, select the Reshape tool here. By selecting this option, you can reshape it, you can rotate it, scale it in proportion with the Shift key, Shift Option from the middle, and we can rotate it. If we grab this one, this is a perspective tool. We can click and we can give it some perspective. And if we click this bottom one, it's more like a free transform. You can shape it however you want to shape it. And if we get the Direct Select tool, this white one, and with the Direct Select tool, we can just click on a point. We can drag it. If you click and drag and hold down Shift, that'll constrain it. With no modifier key, you can drag it anywhere you want. If you hold Shift and Option and click on it and drag, that'll make a duplicate, and that'll work for any of these. Shift Option, click and drag, make a duplicate. Alright, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the fill and the stroke. If we select the circle, we can pick any color over here and it'll fill it with that color. We can also click here and just pick a color out of this palette. We can use Pantone colors and type in a specific color and fill it with that color. We can also click here to bring up the stroke, and we can change the color of the stroke. And if we click on the stroke palette, we can increase the weight of the stroke. And then here with the align stroke, right now it's set to center. We could click this one, align the stroke to the inside. We could click this one, align the stroke to the outside. We could click on this dashed line and turn that into dashes. We can adjust the dash and the gap. If we wanted longer strokes, we could do 20. And if we wanted shorter distance in between, we could do like 5. And then we could type in different numbers here to vary the stroke. So we'll select the square. We'll add a fill color to that. Click on our stroke. We'll leave that black. We'll raise this to 10 points. And again, we can align it to the center, to the inside, or to the outside. We're going to leave it aligned to the center. We're going to add a dash, and you can see that it automatically defaults on a square to where it wraps the corner with the dashes. There is an option you can click where it won't fit it to the corners perfectly. I don't know why you'd want to use that, but you would think you'd want them rounded to the corners. So anyway, there's that option. So let's go back to our circle here. Let's make that a little bigger. Let's take off that dashed line, and let's do the stroke about 5. And we're just going to take that fill off, take the fill away. Now what I want to show you is how you can add multiple strokes to an object. So we have this stroke, and let's make it yellow, and we'll center that stroke. And we'll come up here to the Appearance palette, and you'll see that this says stroke here. We can click on that. We can come up here to this drop down menu and say add new stroke, and that'll add a second stroke behind the first one. So we can click on this. We can change the color of that second stroke. We can increase the size so it'll show up behind it, maybe a little bigger than that. We can adjust the width here and everything here like the palette down here. We can even come in and give it another stroke, make that one even bigger, make that one a different color. And you could just keep adding more strokes on there to get the appearance that you want. We could come up here and we could click on none and remove the strokes. Another thing we can do is fill this shape with a gradient. Click on our gradient panel. You need to click on the fill, click on the gradient, and you'll see that this is a linear gradient going from left to right, but since this is a circle, we probably want to do a radial gradient. So we can click here, change that to a radial gradient, and we can have it going from light to dark, or we can click here and switch it where it goes from light on the outside to dark in the middle. And we'll talk more about colors and gradients and all that in a later feature. The next thing we're going to talk about is alignment. Let's say we had some circles here, and let's say that we just need them all lined up. We could select them all, come down here to align, and if we hit this first button, it'll align them all to the left. If we hit the second button, it'll align them all to the center. If we click this third button, it'll align them all to the right. If we click this one, it'll align the tops. If we click this one, it'll align their centers. And if we click this one, it'll align their bottoms. Then we're going to come down here to the bottom to distribute spacing. And if we click the second one, it'll space them out from left to right. So now there's an even amount of space in between. And if we turned our shapes this way, and we click this vertical distribute, it would distribute them all with equal distance, top to bottom. So you can just kind of play around with that and see how different shapes and sizes of objects are affected by the different buttons. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the stacking order. So we got 3 boxes here, and we'll change colors. Alright, so this red one is on top of both of them, the green one's in the middle, and the pink one's on the bottom. So if we click this middle one, and we go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back, then that's going to put it at the very bottom. If we click on this one, and we say Object, Arrange, Bring to the front, it's going to bring it all the way to the very front, in front of every one of them. Alright, so let's send it back to the back. If we click on this one, Object, Arrange, and we say Bring Forward, then it only brings it up one level, and it puts it back in between these two. So that's basically how you stack the shapes. So I guess that's about it for now. Be sure to check out the rest of the videos in this series to see the other 9 features you need to know when working in Adobe Illustrator. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you liked this video and would like to see more, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you later.